The growth of your business is dependent on the people you surround yourself with. Some wise advice already shared by Philip Newman from Metals Focus. Welcome to the session, Philip. How are you?
Good, and thanks for having me on.
My pleasure indeed. Let's get straight into it. So tell us a bit about your business and what kind of services you provide, Phil.
Sure. Well, Metals Focus just celebrated its 10th anniversary. There's about 30 people in 8 markets, and we specialize in providing research on the precious metals markets.
Amazing, fantastic. So providing research to people in special precious metals markets. Who would be your typical customers, would you say?
That's a very good question. So really it depends on what product you're taking. If you're taking our longer dated forecasts, then you could be a hedge fund or a mining company. Or if you're taking our mine cost service or our doré flows, you could be a logistics company that's looking to move the metal around.
Mm-hmm. So from hedge funds to logistics, businesses that want to know more about precious metals is who you work with. Great stuff. You mentioned a very important point. I was lucky enough to speak to you for a few minutes before the session started, and you mentioned that one of the things that have contributed to the growth of your business is being surrounded by the right people. Could you elaborate a bit on that and maybe share some of your experiences and learnings on how surrounding yourself with the right people has contributed towards your growth?
Well, you're right. I've been very fortunate, both in terms of my fellow managing directors who frankly, do things that I can't do. And I think we work incredibly well together, but also the staff and the colleagues that we've managed to bring in over the years. I've been an analyst all my life, but some of the people we brought in have been working in the industry. So both have different experiences, different network of contacts. So really you find yourself really learning all the time.
Amazing. So it could be anything from knowledge that I carry to the contacts I carry is an important part to having a business. What about the learning aspect? I mean, you're in the research business and you're constantly learning new things. And as business owners, no matter what industry they operate in, learning is a key part, right? How do you go about staying well in tune with what's new and fresh out there for your business?
Well, I think really it's important, even as a business owner, to make sure that you keep your hand in the market from a research point of view. So we spend quite a lot of time on the road, meeting contacts, making sure that you stay on top, both in terms of market developments, because the market does keep moving. You think about how the markets reacted after COVID, and we saw things in the gold market that we'd never seen ever before. But also, people leave the industry. There's a turnover of contacts. So again, it's important you stay out there just so you stay abreast of who is important to speak to, both for research and also really to make a sale as well.
It makes sense. It makes sense. I mean, to a certain degree, as you're alluding to, knowledge is power, and the more knowledge you have of the market, you can find those gaps or opportunities exist. Talking about opportunities, I mean, many moons ago, you were employed. You used to work for other people, and then you took the step of creating your own business. What would you say inspired you to do that?
Well, really, having many years in the market, and I used to work at a boutique company called GFMS. They were bought out by Thomson Reuters. For some of us, that didn't necessarily work out so well. So really, it seemed like a natural move to leave and to create Metals Focus. So we were really responding to an opportunity, and in a sense, I guess, taking advantage of the fact that we had so many years in the market. And I guess that helped us to overcome the fact that initially, of course, Metals Focus was new. Why should people speak to us? Why should they, give us their hard-earned dollars? So we were able, thankfully, and we've always been really thankful to the market, not just for now for the success we have, but especially for those early years, the way the market responded to us and really helped the company to grow.
Makes sense. So knowledge was a key thing over there. Whilst the experience was short, the knowledge was deep. And that's what seems as if helped you earn the respect of potential prospects you're speaking to.
Yeah, and I think the fact that we had built up our reputations, they knew who they were dealing with, on an individual basis. Because really, across the precious metals market, it's all about those individual relationships. Not only for a sale, but why should someone trust you to speak to you, to give you information which may not be in the public domain? Because you've got to remember, outside of, say, the mining area, most of the precious metals industry is privately owned. So information that we need to run our business, to produce our research, is only provided by people, if they trust you to handle that information with sensitivity, with care, that they would expect. And again, because we had so many years in the market before we started Metals Focus, that really encouraged them and enabled them to make, to make that step, and take that step.
Okay, yeah, and that makes sense. And you mentioned a very important point earlier around building trust and building relationships. Again, a universal practice, probably important, or very important in your business, but probably important in most businesses where long-term clientele is an important factor. What tips, advice would you share with any other business out there on how to go about building trust and that relationship that's so important to keep continued custom?
Well, I think one thing we really learned is that, especially in the early days of Metals Focus, when cash flow was king and profit was something for another year, that we really had to go at the pace of those that we were trying to do research with, or those that we were trying to sell to. It was no good saying to them, well, we need the money, you must close this deal now. People would have walked away from us immediately. So we had to learn to be patient, and as I said, to go at the pace of those that we were speaking to. And I think, playing the long game really worked tremendously. And even now, there were deals that take, some deals take, several years to complete. That's why I think also we've learned to have a very wide pipeline from a sales point of view. And even for research, there are some contacts that you see, and it could be 1 or 2 years that you see them, perhaps every 4 or 5 months, and the information flow is one way. But you have to play that game. You have to gradually earn their trust at their pace, not your pace. And I think if you're able to be patient, then it will pay dividends.
And that's such pertinent information, because in an environment where people are trying to grow fast, get fast, and build their businesses quickly, sometimes you can burn through customers when they're not ready for it. Because although you may have a great product, it may not be a great product to them at this time. It could be in 6 months, 6 years, and you're really massaging that point, which is important for most business owners, isn't it?
It is. I think you touched on a really important point. It's also the flexibility, because when we started Metals Focus, if I'm honest, we were, patting ourselves on the back, haven't we done a great thing? And in the first week of starting the company, the gold price collapsed. And so our business plan of, in a high price environment, we could sell, for example, to hedge funds, to mining companies. We had to rewrite almost everything and, have that flexible approach. And that's carried us in good stead. So now, when we see a potential client, we have products and services that work in a high price environment, they work in a low price environment. Maybe you're taking market intel, or maybe you actually don't want any of that, but you want to advertise it in our reports that we pass out across the market, because that we have that reputation, and hopefully you'll benefit from that reputation. So I think, being in good stead, having that flexible approach, both in terms of how we developed in the early days, and also I think extending that in terms of the flat structure that we have. If someone comes to us with an idea, and if we think it's obviously commercially viable, we're able to make a fairly quick decision to test that in the market as well. And so I think that flexibility has carried us through quite well.
Really good. I mean, the flat structure is such an interesting point. You mentioned over there, kind of bringing in with the new way of operating, isn't it? And a flat structure where everyone's got kind of an equal voice, especially when it comes to sharing ideas of how to continue growing. So taking a look, I mean, you're in the business of research, and I presume you're researching your own industry as well from time to time. But let's park all the external factors aside. Parking all the external factors aside. For example, market conditions, recession, etc., etc. What would you say are the 3 top challenges that you as a business would face that maybe other peers in business could also be facing as well?
Well, I mean, although you say parking external factors, I mean, I do have to name that because, for example, when something like COVID hits, do you have the infrastructure internally, the network of contacts, the cash flow to keep running?
Mm,
And if I'm being utterly candid, you know, if we'd started Metals Focus in, say, 2018 or 19, maybe I wouldn't be here now talking to you in this current role, if we're being
mm,
if we're being honest. Um, I think also what's important internally, again, it's having that team around you that you trust. When things are tough, they understand that perhaps you've got to make hard choices in terms of the company, or one has to put more hours in, or whatever it may be. And the fact that they bought into the brand, they bought into the company owners, and how well you've treated them,
mm.
then when things are tough, then they will perhaps put in the extra hard miles for you. I think that's probably two
Great.
out of your three, but I think those are some of the most important things.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, the first one, yes, there's an external one, but I think there's an internal element as well to really look after and manage your cash flow well, because depending on what can happen in the outside world, you've got to have a bit of a buffer to manage that internally as well. And I think during COVID times, there was a figure that was being thrown out there by finance ministers, etc., and that was to try and have at least 3 months of buffer cash in your business, where you assume that if there's no cash coming in, you can run your business for 3 months. And hey, look, that could be a good line in the sand. Depends. Some businesses may want to have three, some six, but kind of know for your business what's relevant, how much cash buffer is important for yours. So that's a very important point you touched on there. And secondly, around team, having a team you can trust, and also you mentioned the word flexibility. That's flexible enough, that's going to stay with you in times of tough and enjoy times with you in times of great. Absolutely. So, conscious running out of time, but I've got one quick question I'd like to ask you. Clearly, you've been in the industry for many years and many experiences in this particular industry. However, if you were to say hello to your 18-year-old self again, and this person did not want to go and work in the corporate world, but wanted to start a business right away, what advice would you give to your 18-year-old self if you were starting a fresh business today?
I think if they wanted to start a business at 18, I would perhaps warn them. I'd probably go even earlier than 18 and maybe speak to my 14-year-old self and tell them to go out there and get as much experience as they could, not even
Mm,
in the perhaps the area of interest, but as wide as possible, because it's about the network of contacts you have, and not just getting a network of contacts for the contacts, just for in its own right, because people would see through that. Because if people, again, see the integrity that you have, even if you're 14, 15, 16, moving up through those years and going through A levels, maybe to college, then then you never know when those people will suddenly come in handy. And
mm,
hopefully, again, it must be a two-way thing. So hopefully you will, be able to help them. So ensuring that in the early days of your business that you're not too busy to help people, because again, those relationships won't mean much. But I think having that foundation of those contacts, that foundation of that network will stand you in good stead. And again, you never know, what direction it will take you in, or how it will help you. Either it's directly in your business, or maybe it's someone that, I don't know, provides you with very cost-effective insurance, or can help you, coach you through those early years as a director. And then you perhaps didn't realize you needed that because you thought you knew everything, as we
mm.
always do when we're 18. But again, having that foundation and being patient and maybe even flexible, that okay, you want to start your business when you're 18, but maybe you should wait a little bit. And even if university is not for you, then some other grounding, some other qualification, maybe more vocational, but being open to what's around. And maybe it will send you in a completely different direction, that perhaps you don't start a business when you're 18, maybe it's 22 or 3, but you're obviously in much better stead. You've built that foundation, and
Good one.
much more chance of perhaps of success then.
Some very wise advice. I mean, to summarize, going out there and gaining experience before you jump into business, no matter what angle that is, whether it's in the profession you want to develop in or something else, building contacts. Never know who can come in use when we need them, and relationships, because people create opportunities, not the ether. Um, some very wise words from there. And the direction we're going to take this conversation is to a close. So, Philip, thank you very much for your time. You've been immense in sharing some really good information for anybody that's listening to this. Maybe you polished over points people may already know, but you also brought in play points that people haven't really thought about very much. So, thank you for your time. Really appreciate it.
Pleasure.